March 2002, a packed house in rural Georgia, buzzing with tension, erupted into chaos the moment the final buzzer sounded. The Pinehurst Tigers had just done the impossible. They'd won the state championship in overtime against a team no one expected them to beat. Sweat-drenched and disbelieving, the 6 starting players collapsed into a group hug, surrounded by confetti, cheerleaders, and a wave of family members rushing the court. It was the first championship in school history, and for these boys, just 17 and 18 years old, it felt like their lives had just changed forever. The team's MVP, Jamal Rivers, clutched the golden trophy with both hands as if afraid it would vanish. Around him were his best friends since middle school, Andre, Malik, Tyrone, Devontae, and Leon. They'd grown up in the same neighborhood, shared the same streets, and now shared the same legacy. Their coach, Coach Franklin, a retired Army sergeant turned gym teacher, pulled the boys in tight for one last huddle. His voice cracked as he told them how proud he was. "You did it," he said. "You made history." The plan afterward was simple. Grab dinner at a small diner about 30 minutes outside of town, quieter, away from the fanfare. The boys had been talking about it for weeks. They wanted to avoid the media, avoid the principal's speech, avoid their parents' emotional tears. Just them, their coach, and a table stacked with burgers and fries. They wanted to be normal again, at least for one night. Security footage would later confirm they left the gym at 9:46 p.m. They were seen laughing, still in their jerseys, loading into Coach Franklin's old white Chevy Astro van. It was a beat-up thing, duct tape on the back window, a rattling engine, and a Pinehurst Tigers bumper sticker faded from the sun. Jamal sat in the front with Coach. The others were piled in the back, teasing each other, phones already dead or left behind in gym bags. And then, they were gone. The van never arrived at the diner. The coach's wife called him at 11:30 p.m. No answer. Jamal's mom called his phone, straight to voicemail. At first, nobody panicked. People assumed they'd stopped somewhere else, gone to a different diner, or decided to drive around and let off steam. But by morning, the worry began to spread. None of the boys had come home. Their beds hadn't been slept in. Their parents, still buzzing with pride from the night before, now felt a cold weight settle in their chests. Something was wrong. The Pinehurst Police Department began calling hospitals, towing companies, neighboring counties. A bolo was issued for the van by noon. Helicopters were dispatched that evening. Search teams combed highways, back roads, even wooded trails. But there was nothing. No crash, no signs of a skid or struggle, no phone pings. It was as if the van had simply driven into a hole in the earth. The school community reeled. Candlelight vigils lit up the gym's parking lot each night. Hundreds attended. News crews swarmed the town. 6 teens and coach vanish after championship victory, the headlines read. National coverage followed, then conspiracy theories. Some speculated they'd run away. Others whispered darker things: abduction, gang retaliation, even supernatural involvement. Everyone had a theory. No one had a clue. On the 3rd day, a farmer a few counties over claimed he saw a white van matching the description turning off a dirt road that led into the woods. Police followed up. Nothing. A dead end. The dirt road eventually narrowed into trees too thick for any vehicle to pass. No tire tracks, no footprints, no evidence. Investigators began digging into each boy's background. No known enemies, no signs of criminal activity. They were clean. Bright futures ahead. Most were scheduled to graduate in 2 months. Jamal had already received a scholarship offer from Georgia Tech. He'd framed the letter above his bed. It was still there when police searched his room. Coach Franklin, too, had nothing to hide. His records were spotless. Decorated military service. 20 years coaching with zero complaints. He was loved, especially by those boys, many of whom he mentored like sons. Still, weeks turned to months, then years. The case went cold. Parents held on, refusing to let go. Birthdays passed. The school retired their jerseys. A mural was painted on the gym wall. 6 boys in silhouette, leaping toward the basket together. The coach's wife eventually moved out of state. Too many memories. But for all the sadness, one image remained frozen in time. A photograph taken minutes after the game. The boys, arms around each other, drenched in sweat and joy, holding that golden trophy as if it were a key to something better. It had been printed in the local paper, enlarged, framed, and placed at the front of the school office. A reminder of glory and of loss. What haunts everyone the most is how ordinary that night began. No strange weather, no odd behavior, no arguments. Just a group of boys celebrating something they'd worked toward their entire lives, and then vanishing without a trace. The road they were last seen on, a quiet 2-lane stretch winding through pine-covered hills, became a place of pilgrimage for their families. Every year on March 12th, they returned, standing silently in the spot where the van was last caught on a gas station security camera, heading north. The road eventually forks into several rural paths. All were searched. None revealed anything. That stretch of road has a strange silence to it now, as if it remembers. Locals say radios go static there, that animals avoid the tree line, that on certain nights, if you park and leave your engine off, you'll hear the faint echo of laughter, teenagers joking, shouting, celebrating. It was supposed to be a night they'd never forget. And in a way it was. And then, 21 years later, in the fall of 2023, a lone hiker in a remote part of Georgia's Chattahoochee Forest stumbled on something rusted and overgrown. Something that shouldn't have been there. A van, white, dented, swallowed by roots, hidden behind a collapsed embankment. And what he saw inside would shatter everything. At first, nobody panicked. Not really. When the boys didn't show up to the diner, people just figured they took a detour. Maybe they were soaking in the wind, riding around town, windows down, laughing. They had just made history for Pine Ridge High School. They deserved to let off steam. But when midnight passed, and none of the 6 boys answered their phones, a cold sense of dread settled over the town. By 6 a.m., parents had started calling each other. None of the boys were home. Not Jalen, the team captain. Not Dre, the point guard with a full scholarship to Kentucky. Not Lamar, who was planning to join the Navy after graduation. Not even Marcus, the coach's nephew. And Coach Thomas, who was driving the van, hadn't shown up at home either. The police were contacted just before sunrise. The first 12 hours were chaos. Officers assumed they'd find the van within a few hours, maybe broken down on a back road. Maybe the kids had been goofing off and run out of gas. The town of Pine Ridge was small, too small for a 15-passenger white Chevy van to vanish without someone noticing. But no one had seen it. That morning, police contacted surrounding counties. Descriptions were given. Amber alerts were issued. State troopers joined the effort. And by noon, the search had escalated into one of the largest missing person operations Georgia had seen in over a decade. Helicopters circled above the rural backroads. Search dogs were brought in. Over 200 volunteers combed the pine forests on foot. They fanned out in organized rows, calling names that felt heavier each time they echoed back with no reply. Riverbanks were scanned, culverts inspected. Even abandoned barns were searched. Still nothing. On the 3rd day, a waitress from a gas station 32 miles away came forward. She said she was sure she saw the team come in. "I remember because they were all wearing the same championship hoodies," she said. "They looked so happy. They bought snacks, Gatorade, and Coach filled up the tank." But when investigators pulled surveillance footage from that gas station, there was a problem. There was no footage of them. Not from that day. Not from that hour. The timestamps lined up, but the van never appeared on the tape. The waitress swore she wasn't lying. She described the kids perfectly. One even had a chipped front tooth, which matched Marcus. But the camera showed nothing. It was as if the van was invisible, or the tape had been altered. Police said it was likely a misremembering, but locals weren't so sure. By the end of the first week, national media started to take notice. News trucks showed up in town, CNN, ABC, even Dateline. They camped out near the school gym, the same gym where, just days earlier, those boys had hoisted the state championship trophy to a screaming crowd. Now it sat behind glass in a silent hallway. The school held a candlelight vigil. Hundreds attended. Students wept. Teachers prayed. Entire families lined the sidewalks holding photos, begging for answers. The town was unraveling. Rumors began to spread like wildfire. Some said the coach had snapped under pressure, that he'd driven them into the lake. Others claimed the boys had run away to avoid future obligations, as if 6 close-knit teammates and their adult coach had conspired to abandon their lives in perfect unison. But those who knew them, really knew them, rejected those ideas completely. Jalen was 2 months from graduating as valedictorian. His mother, Denise, appeared on local television in tears. He was planning his future. He had plans. They all did. Someone took them. As days became weeks, the narrative began to shift. Police started to scale back the operation. News crews slowly packed up. Some suggested maybe the van drove off the highway, deep into the woods or into some sinkhole no one had found yet. But that didn't explain the lack of tire tracks, or cell signals, or even a single piece of trash from the van. The vehicle, and everyone inside it, had seemingly disappeared from the face of the earth. One particularly chilling moment came on day 12 of the search. A bloodhound team hit on something near an old service road about 15 miles north of town. Excitement rippled through the searchers. Everyone held their breath. But when the dog's path ended, it just stopped. Right in the middle of the road. No fork, no turnoff, just open pavement, then nothing. It was as if the scent evaporated into thin air. That night, one of the volunteers, an older man who'd lived in Pine Ridge his whole life, muttered something that stuck with everyone. "Maybe they never left the road," he said. "Maybe the road left them." Some laughed it off. Others didn't. After 3 weeks, the official search was suspended. No bodies, no calls, no sightings. The van, still gone. What remained was a town on the edge. Parents who never slept. Students who left flowers on the school steps every Friday. And 6 families whose lives would never return to normal. The community tried to move on, but it couldn't. The gym was renamed in their honor. A mural was painted in the cafeteria. But year after year, no new evidence came to light. Then, 2 decades later, in the dense woods over 60 miles away, something was found that would reopen every wound and rewrite everything Pine Ridge thought it knew. The night they disappeared, the town didn't just lose 6 basketball players. It lost its heart. Pine Ridge had always been small, but that team made it feel big. Every single one of those boys had a story, a life, a dream, and when the van vanished, so did every one of them. Jamal Carter, the team captain, was the one everyone looked up to. 18, tall, calm under pressure. A full ride to Georgetown already in his hands. He wasn't just good, he was special. Coaches from across the state whispered about him. His mother, Vanessa, said he barely cried as a baby. He just watched, observed, understood. He played like that too. Jamal wasn't flashy, he was surgical. And off the court? He volunteered at the local rec center, taught little kids to dribble. He said he wanted to be more than an athlete. His goal wasn't the NBA. It was something bigger, something that mattered. Then there was Deshaun Mitchell, 17, the youngest of 5 brothers, all raised by their grandmother in a neighborhood that chewed people up. His oldest brother was serving life. His second oldest hadn't been seen since '98. Deshaun? He played like it was the only way out. And maybe it was. Every shot was a step away from the chaos. Teachers said he was quiet, respectful, but on the court, he roared. His sneakers had names scrawled on the soles, his siblings. He said, "I carry them with me every game." Marcus Thomas was different. He didn't talk much. His world was sketchbooks and stars. 17 years old and already creating a graphic novel about a team of kids lost on an alien planet. He wasn't the best player. He barely got minutes, but he never stopped showing up. After games, while everyone else was celebrating, Marcus was usually in the back of the bus with a pencil, drawing scenes from memory. He'd sketch the plays, the crowd, the weird expressions on the refs' faces. Quiet, brilliant. Nobody understood him completely, but they all loved him. Tyrell and Jordan McCall, cousins born 2 months apart, raised in the same house, moved like a 2-man army. On the court, they didn't even need to speak. They just knew. Tyrell was the enforcer. Rebounds, blocks, pure muscle. Jordan was finesse. No-look passes, ankle-breaking crossovers, half-court buzzer beaters. Off the court, they were always laughing, always making the locker room crack up. Their coach called them the soul of the team. Jordan used to say, "We ain't playing for the highlight reel, we playing for home." They were inseparable, even when they vanished. And then there was Isaiah Banks. He rode the bench, barely got any playtime. But ask anyone on that team who mattered most, and they'd say Isaiah. He never missed practice. He always had extra tape, extra water, extra encouragement. When someone got benched, Isaiah sat beside them. When someone messed up, Isaiah patted their back. His jersey never got dirty, but his spirit showed up every time. The night they won the championship, Isaiah cried the hardest. He said, "We did it, man, we really did it." And then he got on that van with the rest of them. 6 boys, 6 dreams, 6 empty seats at the celebration dinner they never made it to. A classmate later said in an interview, "They weren't just teammates, they were brothers. You couldn't pull one away from the group without the rest following." After they vanished, their lockers became shrines. Notes slipped through the vents, trophies dusted off but never moved. On the chalkboard in the gym, someone wrote, "Wherever you are, you're still family." And that's what Pine Ridge lost. Not just athletes, not just teenagers, but family. And the mystery? It was just beginning. The day the search was called off, the silence hit harder than the headlines. 6 boys, 1 coach, no trace. It didn't feel real. Not in a town like Pine Ridge, where secrets didn't last, and the woods always gave back what they took. But weeks passed, then months, then years, and the woods stayed quiet. And that's when the stories started. At first, they were whispers, mostly in barbershops and church parking lots. A cousin of a search volunteer claimed the van might have slipped into an underground cave, a hidden sinkhole. "That part of Georgia's riddled with them," he said. "Soft earth. You'd never know it was there till you were already gone." That theory caught traction until someone asked, "Why no oil trail, no debris? Not even a single tire track past the gas station?" The ground was too still, too clean. Then came another story. A trucker passing through town claimed he saw a white van, same model, parked near the edge of Mason's Bluff at 2 a.m. the night of the disappearance. "No lights, no movement," he said. "Looked like it was just waiting." Police followed up, but the bluff showed nothing. Just dry grass, broken glass from a party 2 weeks earlier, and an old fence post half torn from a storm. No sign of a van. And yet, Pine Ridge couldn't let go. Deshawn's mother, Tanya, started sleeping with her phone on her chest. Every night she stared at it before drifting off. She told a reporter in 2005, "If he needs me, I want to be the first voice he hears." One night, about 2 weeks after the boys vanished, her phone rang. No caller ID, just static on the other end. She answered, "Hello? Deshawn?" The only response was a low humming, like an engine idling far away. Then a faint click. Then nothing. She swore it was him. Said a mother knows her child's energy. Police traced the call to a deactivated payphone near the state line, 90 miles away. The number had no record before or after that moment, just one phantom ring. Then there was the dream. Isaiah's best friend, a junior named Corey, stopped speaking for 3 days after the disappearance. When he finally did, his voice shook. "They came to me," he said, "in my sleep." At first, no one paid much attention. Grief plays tricks. But Corey described things no one had told him, things the media hadn't released. He said he saw the boys standing at the edge of the pine woods near Lake Bennett. All 6, jerseys still on, barefoot. He said they weren't sad, just still, staring into the trees like something was calling them, but they wouldn't go in. They looked paused, like they were deciding. Corey's mother took him to a pastor. Said he started drawing pictures of trees with eyes in them. One picture had the boys' names written above a dark path. Just one name was missing. The coach's. Which raised another shadow. Coach Dale Monroe, 47 years old, a Pine Ridge native. No record, no complaints, no scandals. Or so it seemed. In 2006, a former student came forward anonymously, claiming Monroe was obsessed with the woods. Said he'd take certain players hiking during off-season. Said the forest clears your mind. Said there were places out there older than God. The claim never went anywhere officially. No charges, no new evidence, just more questions. Then a photo surfaced. A Polaroid mailed anonymously to a local newspaper in 2011. It showed what looked like a white Chevy van parked near a broken gate. The image was grainy, distorted, dated on the back. February 16th, 2002. No one knew who sent it. No return address. The gate in the photo? Eventually matched to an old access road near Harper's Quarry, a dead-end site long closed due to toxic runoff. The area had been searched in 2002. Nothing had turned up then. When police returned 9 years later, the gate was gone. Only an empty clearing remained. Despite everything, life went on, as it does. Memorials were built. The school planted 6 oak trees by the gym. A mural of the team went up in the cafeteria, painted by Marcus's younger brother. But behind the memorials was a wound that never quite closed. Every time a van backfired in town, someone flinched. Every year on the anniversary, the town held a vigil. Jamal's mother never stopped bringing his favorite cologne, dabbing it on a folded jersey she clutched in silence. Jordan and Tyrell's cousin once left a walkie-talkie on the court where they used to practice. "In case they want a radio back," he said with a sad smile. But every candle burned out, and every voicemail box stayed full. The strangest part wasn't what people saw. It was what they didn't. No license plates reported. No odd credit card activity. No social media clues as the years moved online. Not even the hint of a hoax or prank. The boys hadn't just disappeared. They'd been erased. Some locals started saying the woods had taken them, that Coach Monroe knew something, that the championship was a trade. "You win," an old man muttered once at a bar, "but you don't get to keep what you win." Those words stuck with people. Others believed it was darker, a cover-up, maybe even a government site near the quarry, some kind of experiment gone wrong. "Why else was there no trace?" they asked. No pieces, no bodies. It's not just a disappearance, it's a removal. In 2013, a podcast about the case briefly went viral. It brought reporters back to town. Nothing new was found, but for a moment, the mystery came alive again. One segment played Tanya's 2002 voicemail on air, static, then humming. The host asked, "If your child's voice was in that hum, would you hear it?" Listeners didn't know how to answer. Because in Pine Ridge, they were still waiting for theirs to speak. The year was 2023, just weeks before Pine Ridge High School was scheduled to unveil its new gym wing. The halls had been gutted and rebuilt, the lockers replaced with modern panels, and the old trophy cases cleaned of dust. It was meant to be a celebration, a fresh start, a way to turn the page on a legacy burdened by a tragedy the town never fully processed. The school had prepared for a dedication ceremony. Speeches were written. A new bronze plaque had been cast for the front entrance, listing the names of the 6 missing boys, etched under the title, "Gone, but not lost." But then the janitor found the letter. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. The construction crews had finished tearing out the final row of rusting lockers near the old back entrance, the ones that hadn't been touched since the early 2000s. Most had been emptied years ago. But one locker, buried in the corner of the basement level near the storage hall, had been sealed shut from the inside, its hinges rusted over and warped. When the janitor, Miguel Alvarez, finally got it open with a crowbar, he expected nothing more than mildew and maybe a forgotten textbook. Instead, he found a single manila envelope, taped with yellowing duct tape to the back panel of the locker. No return name, no recipient. Just one word written in faded red ink across the front. Sorry. At first, he thought it was a prank. The envelope was old, brittle at the corners. But something about the handwriting, shaky, rushed, unsettled him. Miguel, a longtime Pine Ridge resident who had watched the boys play their final season, froze for a moment. He didn't open it. He took it straight to the principal. What followed was a cascade of stunned reactions. The school called the sheriff. The sheriff called the state bureau. And within hours, the letter had become the center of a reopened investigation that had lain dormant for 2 decades. Inside the envelope were 2 things. The first, a Polaroid photo. The image was dark, badly degraded, but still legible. It showed what appeared to be 6 figures standing just beyond the reach of headlights, their bodies backlit, stretched tall like silhouettes. The forest around them was thick, wild. The light source was low, like the headlights of a car. A white vehicle, partially visible at the edge of the frame, was parked crookedly, as if in a hurry. The second item, a note. Written in the same red ink, but messier now. The handwriting almost frantic. The note read, "It wasn't supposed to be real. I thought it was just a story. But they followed. And then they listened. I'm sorry. I should have stopped it. I should have told someone. We only wanted to win." There was no name, no date, no explanation. But the implication was deafening. The letter hit the town like a thunderclap. For years, Pine Ridge had lived with the weight of 6 missing boys and a coach who vanished without a trace. Theories came and went, ghost stories, cover-ups, desperate mothers clinging to silence like a shield. But this was the first tangible piece of evidence in 21 years. And it had been hiding inside a locker just steps from the gym those boys once called home. News vans returned. Microphones swarmed. National media picked up the story again, hungry for updates. The locker itself was sent to the state lab. Fingerprints were pulled, partial, smudged, and too degraded to confirm a match. The envelope and note were carbon dated, suggesting the materials were at least 15 to 20 years old. Investigators believed it had likely been placed there shortly after the school's remodel in 2004, when the locker block was sealed off during asbestos abatement and never fully reopened. But who placed it? That's where things got stranger. In the original investigation, one of the locker rows had belonged to Coach Monroe. Teachers confirmed he'd occasionally store extra gear or player paperwork in a few random lockers, some of which were never officially assigned to students. And the locker the envelope was found in? It had no record. No student ever claimed it. No key was ever issued for it. In fact, it had been jammed shut as far back as 2003. Several staff remembered asking Monroe about it, and he reportedly said, "Just busted, nothing in there." No one questioned it again. When investigators revisited Monroe's remaining personal effects, items boxed up and stored after his disappearance, they found one peculiar detail: a handwritten list of locker numbers, 6 in total. Each number matched the lockers previously assigned to the missing boys. And one additional number was circled: the jammed locker, the one where the envelope was hidden. This revelation threw the case into chaos. Had Monroe left the note? Was it his confession? Or had someone else, a teammate, a janitor, a faculty member, found out something and left the note anonymously? Then came the phone call. A former Pine Ridge student, now living in Tennessee, called the sheriff's office after seeing the letter on the news. She said in her junior year, spring 2003, she had overheard Coach Monroe having a strange conversation in the equipment room. He was talking to himself, pacing. She didn't hear much, just fragments. "They asked for something," he said. "It wasn't supposed to cost us them. It was just a story." The girl said she remembered the way his voice shook, like he was afraid, not of being caught, but of something still watching. By the end of the week, investigators had reopened the Pine Ridge 6 case fully. Old evidence was re-examined, witnesses re-interviewed. The woods near Mason's Bluff were searched again, this time with updated imaging tech and drones. The blurry photo from the letter became a focal point. Analysts tried enhancing it. They determined the forest in the background didn't match the piney woods around Pine Ridge, but rather a denser, older growth region about 40 miles away, closer to an abandoned strip of federal land near a decommissioned research site, a place that had once belonged to the military and then quietly been forgotten. No one could say for sure who wrote the note or when. But the message was clear. Whatever happened that night in 2002, someone had known. And for 21 years, they had stayed silent. Maybe out of guilt, maybe out of fear. And now, they were trying to speak, even if it was from a locked metal box in a dark basement hallway. The town braced itself, because when secrets resurface after 2 decades, they usually drag something else up with them. The tip came in on a humid Thursday morning. At first, no one took it seriously. The sheriff's department received dozens of leads each year related to the Pine Ridge 6, almost all from psychics, conspiracy forums, or confused hunters who mistook rusted trailers for something more ominous. But this one was different. The caller was calm, specific. His name was Ellis Granger, a former EMT from South Carolina, now retired and spending most of his time hiking the lesser-known trails of the Oconee National Forest. He was well-spoken, sober, serious, and what he described stopped the room cold. "I found a van," he said, "half swallowed by the forest. I think you need to come see it." Granger had been off-trail, bushwhacking along a dried-up creek bed near an old fire road. He'd taken that route dozens of times, knew the terrain well, but this time something caught his eye, an unnatural shape jutting from the undergrowth. He thought it was a boulder at first, but then sunlight hit a patch of faded white paint, and he saw it, a van, rusted, buried under vines and years of pine needles. Its windows were clouded, its tires long gone, its body caved slightly on one side. But the decal was still visible. Pine Ridge High Athletics. Sheriff Danvers was on site within 4 hours, along with a forensic team and 2 deputies who had worked the original case back in 2002. One of them, Deputy Marla Ingram, reportedly whispered, "It's them," before the first door was even opened. The forest had preserved the vehicle better than expected. The thick canopy had shielded it from the worst of the weather. It hadn't been driven off a cliff or submerged in water. It had simply been hidden, forgotten, wrapped in silence. The license plate matched the coach's van. The interior had deteriorated but was still mostly intact. The dashboard was thick with dust, spiderwebs trailing from the vents. A single pair of broken sunglasses lay on the passenger seat. There were no bloodstains, no signs of a struggle. But what was inside turned a decades-old cold case into a new nightmare. First, the uniforms. 6 of them, folded, or maybe abandoned, on the rear seats. The names were faded, but legible. Jamal, Deshaun, Marcus, Tyrell, Jordan, Isaiah. Pine Ridge Panthers jerseys, dirt-streaked and moth-eaten, but unmistakable. The threads were frayed like they'd been tugged at, pulled on and off too many times in a hurry, or with panic. Next, the trophy. It sat on the floor, partially cracked, its golden figure twisted and snapped in 2. One of the nameplates had been ripped off entirely. The base splintered. It looked less like something broken by accident, and more like something intentionally destroyed. In the rear cargo area, 6 backpacks, each one unique, scuffed, personalized. Police inventory later confirmed they matched bags the boys had been carrying the night of the championship. Some still contained items inside: a Walkman, a few Polaroids, a set of keys, a notebook with sketches of trees and stars. One bag, later identified as Isaiah's, held a folded paper with a single sentence: "We weren't supposed to go that way." But the most disturbing discovery was under the driver's seat. A spiral-bound notebook, water-damaged but readable. Its cover was blank, except for a single scratched-in line: "Property of T. Monroe." Inside, the pages were disjointed, a mix of Coach's handwriting and frantic, almost childlike scrawl. Some entries were dated, others not. The tone shifted violently, from tactical notes about basketball drills to rambling observations about things in the trees and howling without sound. The first page hit like a hammer. "We made it back, but we're not the same." That line repeated, at least 4 times, at the top of the next few pages, like someone trying to convince themselves. Further entries revealed chilling details. One excerpt read, "We heard it before we saw it, like a whistle but wrong. It didn't echo, just stopped mid-air." Another. "Jordan said he saw lights in the tree line, not headlights, green, pulsing, moving too fast." And another. "Marcus tried to run. Said something was calling his name from under the van. I told him not to listen. I don't think he heard me." Dozens of pages followed. Many were smeared, some illegible. There were diagrams, scribbles of eyes, branches shaped like claws, references to "a door without a frame," and "the night that folded in on itself." One particularly lucid passage seemed to describe an attempted return. "We found the road again, but it didn't go to town. It looped. Jamal said it felt like walking inside a thought, like we were being remembered backwards." The final page contained a different kind of handwriting, smaller, tighter. Not the Coach's. It simply read, "They let me write this, but they're still watching." Authorities sealed off the area. The van was airlifted by helicopter to a secure lab for further examination. The forest was canvassed. No human remains were found. No DNA hits beyond the boys themselves and Coach Monroe. And yet no sign of them. The find was simultaneously a validation and a horror. The world now knew the van was real. The boys had entered the woods. Something had happened. Something enough to shake them. Enough to make them tear off their jerseys, enough to break their trophy, enough to make a seasoned coach scribble in madness, and then vanish into legend. The public reaction was swift and stunned. News stations ran loops of the footage for days. A second vigil was held, this time at the edge of the forest where the van had been discovered. Hundreds gathered. Some cried, some prayed. A few just stared at the trees, as if daring them to speak. But the forest remained quiet. No new clues have emerged since. But one ranger, part of the retrieval team, said something that still sends chills through those who heard it. He said he was clearing vines from the van's windshield when he noticed something etched faintly into the condensation on the inside of the glass. 6 fingerprints, all pointing outward, all pressed there, from within. And above them, in barely legible grease, one last word. Still. As if they hadn't left, as if they were watching, as if the woods weren't done with them yet. The spiral notebook, water-damaged and warped, was sent immediately to the state lab after its discovery under the driver's seat. It had been pressed beneath a crushed Gatorade bottle and a folded-up warm-up jersey. At first glance, it looked like any old coaching log, the kind Coach Terrence Miller always carried. Parents remembered him scribbling in it courtside, jotting down plays and performance notes. But this was no playbook. Forensic teams carefully opened the cover and revealed the first few pages. Lineups, substitutions, shooting percentages. Normal stuff. Notes like, Marcus running low on stamina, rotate him mid-3RD. Isaiah needs more confidence. Have Jamal work with him. Nothing alarming. It read like a man focused on his boys and the game. But then the tone changed. Roughly 20 pages in, the script shifted. The handwriting became slanted, uneven. Letters began pressing hard into the paper, as though written in haste or agitation. There were no more stats, only scattered observations, and most were unsettling. The first of these entries was dated the night of the disappearance, March 12th, 2002. Left the diner, spirits high, boys loud, joking, weather clear. Thought I saw headlights behind us. But then they were gone. Later on the same page. GPS went out 10 mins after turning onto Old Cedar Road. Cell service died too. Thought we hit a dead zone. Strange, I've driven this route before. Then, in capital letters, the road feels wrong. Investigators circled that line. Coach Miller was a former Marine, grounded, rational. Teammates and parents described him as no-nonsense, mentally steady. But in the notebook, it was clear something had begun to fracture. Over the next pages, the entries became more like journal fragments, sometimes one line, sometimes just a few scattered words. Past same tree, carved initials. They weren't ours. Jordan says it smells like metal. Deshaun asked why it's suddenly cold. No stars. Sky looks empty. Then, Isaiah heard something in the woods. Said it sounded like footsteps, but no one was there. They all started hearing it. Thump, 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 in rhythm. I pulled over. Needed to breathe. Jamal begged me not to stop. There were even rough sketches in the margins. Stick figures at first. Then more detailed outlines. Trees with human-like eyes. The silhouette of a van, surrounded by small black dots. One image appeared over and over again across multiple pages, a circle filled with scribbled lines like a hollow face. Then came a section of entries marked Day 2? The use of a question mark was chilling. Had they been there that long? The timestamps vanished after that. The writing degraded further. Still can't find the main road. Compass spins. Marcus said we passed the same barn twice. It's not there anymore. They saw something across the tree line. Tall, moved like wind, but heavy. The sky doesn't change. It's 3 a.m. But no stars. One note had been scratched so hard the paper tore slightly. The forest wants something. Investigators reading the pages said they could almost feel the coach's mental state unraveling. The man who had once been the solid foundation for those boys was slipping, and then it got darker. Jamal says Isaiah was talking to someone outside the van. I saw it too, but there was no one there. Tyrell woke up screaming, said Jordan is glitching. What the hell does that mean? One page was entirely blank, except for a single line written in large block letters, taking up most of the space. Don't open the door if they knock. A few pages later, the tone became unhinged, frantic, less like a coach writing to document events and more like a man leaving behind warnings he knew would never be read in time. They keep looking in the windows. I don't think they blink. They look like the boys, but it's not them. They asked to come in. I said no. Jamal said I should have. But Jamal's not Jamal anymore. One section contained what looked like a diagram, a bird's eye sketch of the van in the forest clearing, and surrounding it, 6 X marks. Each had a name next to it, but outside the circle, one more X. It read, then a longer, more coherent passage. I think the road isn't a road. I think we didn't drive here. I think we were pulled. It started after the game, the noise, the stillness, the way the forest watches. I can hear them laughing outside the van now, but they don't sound like teenagers. They sound rehearsed, like they practiced the sound. I'm going to try to lead them away. Maybe I can give the real boys time to run. If anyone finds this, I'm sorry. I should have turned back. Then, nothing. The final pages were blank, save for smudges of ink and what appeared to be dried mud. Some thought it was blood, but tests were inconclusive. A forensic linguist later reviewed the notebook. Her conclusion? This was written by someone under severe duress. The dissociation between entries, the change in grammar, syntax, the handwriting degradation. It reads like someone being pulled apart emotionally. Or like more than one person was writing, using the same hand. The journal was never released in full to the public, but its existence alone caused a firestorm of speculation. TikTokers analyzed every leaked line. Reddit theorists made timelines. One comment stood out. He said they looked like the boys, but they weren't. So where are the real ones? And another. What if the ones that came back weren't supposed to? Coach Miller was never found. Not a single hair. Not a single trace of DNA beyond that notebook. But his words lingered. Especially the final full sentence before silence took over the pages. The knocking has stopped, but I don't think it means we're safe. And just below it, scrawled in ink so faint it almost disappeared. It means they're already inside. After the van was found, the investigation turned into a statewide obsession. The media surged back into the town like a wave. Local officials reopened the case, this time under a new classification: active, enduring, unknown circumstances. It was a polite way of saying we still have no clue what happened, but now we're taking it seriously. The first forensic sweep confirmed what many feared, and what some quietly hoped. No human remains. Not a drop of blood. Not even a bone fragment. Aside from decayed personal effects, water damage, and signs of age, the interior of the van was empty. Peaceful, even. Like a museum exhibit. As if the 6 boys and their coach had simply stepped out for a moment and never returned. One thing stood out. The van had not moved since March 2002. The moss around the tires had grown undisturbed. Roots snaked underneath the frame. Soil analysis confirmed the vehicle had sat there, exactly as it was, for over 2 decades. That one fact silenced the few remaining skeptics who believed the group might have staged their disappearance. But if they hadn't left the forest in the van, How did they leave at all? That question took on even more urgency when a man named Dwight Harlan, a hunter and lifelong resident of nearby Greene County, came forward with a statement. He hadn't wanted to be involved before, but after seeing the van on the news, he couldn't stay quiet. 2 months earlier, before the van was discovered, he'd been walking his hunting trail in the southern stretch of the Oconee Forest when he saw something that, at the time, made no sense. "I was walking up past Dry Creek, near that old logging trail. I saw a group of teenagers, 6 of them, black boys, just standing there, kinda in a circle. Didn't say a word." He described the clothing in strange detail. One wore a Georgetown University hoodie, another had white high-top sneakers, one had a jacket with a 1999 NBA All-Star Game patch. But it wasn't just the outfits. It was the vibe, he said. It looked like they stepped out of a time capsule. Everything they had on looked 20 years old. Clean, not dirty or tattered, just outdated. Like they didn't know they were out of place. When asked if he approached them, Harlan shook his head. "I felt weird, off. I don't know how to explain it. It was dead silent. No birds, no wind, nothing. One of the boys looked at me. Just looked, and I turned around and left. Something told me not to speak to them." Police tried to track Harlan's path, and what they found nearby deepened the mystery. Roughly 10 miles southeast of the van's location, pinned to a tree with a rusted railroad spike, was a tattered white basketball jersey. The name on the back, faded but readable. Tyrell. It wasn't the jersey he wore in the championship game, but it was clearly one of his. Game tape from earlier in the 2001-2002 season confirmed the number and color. Below the jersey, tucked carefully into a torn plastic grocery bag, was an object no one expected. A cassette tape, sealed in its original shell, wrapped in duct tape with one word handwritten across the front. Practice. Forensics dated the tape and its packaging to the early 2000s. The reel inside was intact. Cleaned and digitized at the state lab, the contents lasted just under 5 minutes, but those minutes would stir debate, fear, and endless speculation. It started innocently enough. The sound of a gym, squeaking sneakers, a bouncing ball, laughter, 6 voices. The 6 boys, there was no doubt. They were talking trash, arguing about plays. Someone said, "Jamal, you ain't got no shot today?" Then came Coach Miller's voice, steady, commanding. "Focus up. Let's run it again. Deshaun, you're drifting too wide." It was real, their cadence, their personalities. Not acted, not staged. Then, silence. No bouncing ball, no sneakers, just the faint hum of something. Off, like static mixed with the sound of wind being funneled through a narrow pipe. Then, a 7th voice. It was lower, male, unclear if it was adult or distorted somehow. It didn't speak at first, just breathing. Then came the whisper, barely audible but unmistakable. "We told you not to stop." The tape ended there. Audio specialists confirmed the 6 voices matched the known players based on videos from school games and interviews, but the 7th? Untraceable. It didn't match Coach Miller. It didn't match anyone. When played in a press conference, the whisper caused a collective shudder. Something about its tone, both amused and sinister, left people unsettled. A viral post on Reddit said, "That wasn't a warning, that was a memory. That voice already knew how it ended." Investigators began to re-examine the road itself. Old Cedar Road, where the van was last spotted by a waitress at a gas station, was found to have an unusual history. In 1983, a logging company shut it down due to multiple reports of magnetic interference and malfunctioning compasses. In 1986, a hiker disappeared after using the same road. His car was found months later, engine running, headlights on, keys still in the ignition. He was never seen again. Locals had long called that stretch of wilderness the Loop. As in, you can walk for hours and come back to where you started, even if you think you're going straight. Some now believe that's where the van drove, into something not marked on maps, not bound by time, which made one final discovery even more disturbing. 6 footprints were found about 300 yards from the Jersey tree. Fresh. All headed deeper into the forest. Lab analysis said they were likely left within the last 2 weeks. And though the prints were full-sized, indicating adult males, the depth and stride matched individuals under 150 pounds, which, investigators noted, would be typical for high school-aged teens. So where are the boys? That depends on who you ask. The parents still hold vigils. They leave lights on. They believe their sons are coming home. Reddit believes they never left the woods and never aged. Others believe something else entirely came back in their place. But in a quiet drawer at the county sheriff's office, under a labeled evidence envelope, the cassette sits to this day. The last known recording of 6 boys, and the thing that answered them. And every so often, an officer will play it again just to be sure. Each time, the whisper is still there. We told you not to stop. The official update came with little fanfare, a short press release, no conference, no media briefing. As of July 7th, the 2002 case involving the disappearance of 6 students and 1 coach has been reclassified as an open, unsolved disappearance. Active investigation has concluded. Just like that, after 21 years of heartbreak, searching, and silence, the file was closed. Sort of. The Georgia Department of Natural Resources soon issued a separate notice. The stretch of Oconee Forest where the van was recovered, roughly 12,000 acres, was to be temporarily restricted for public safety reasons. No details. Just a vague list of environmental hazards, unstable terrain, risk of sinkholes, old logging equipment. But locals knew better. They'd seen the news. They knew the whispers. And some had their own stories. Within weeks, a series of unconfirmed reports began to surface. First, it was a group of hikers who claimed they saw a white van with no license plate parked just off the trail. When they returned with a ranger the next day, the van was gone, without tire tracks. Then came the sounds, sneakers squeaking, just after dark, always in the same area near the old game trail. One woman said she thought it was animals at first, until she heard a basketball bounce. Just once. Then silence. Teenagers, daredevils, thrill-seekers all flocked to the site trying to capture something. Anything. Most came back with nothing but blurred footage and uneasy feelings. But a few posted things that couldn't be explained. One TikTok video went viral, a shaky shot from the tree line, filmed at dusk. A figure stood just beyond a clearing, a teenager, motionless, wearing a high school varsity jacket, the kind the boys wore in 2002. The video was 6 seconds long. By the end, the boy looked directly at the camera. Then, it glitched. The uploader claimed the file corrupted immediately after. The account has since been deleted. The town of Worthville, once known only for its small-town charm and high school athletics, became a name on forums and conspiracy threads. Paranormal YouTubers made hour-long videos breaking down the timeline. Reddit exploded with theories. Some insisted the boys had found a rift, a loop in time or space. Others said something took them, something that mimicked them. A few even believed they had died that night and were trapped as echoes, residual imprints on a cursed trail. But the parents didn't speak much anymore. Grief ages a person, but this kind of mystery, it hollows you out. Still, every March, on the anniversary of the championship win, they gathered at the gym. The school holds a vigil. 6 candles, 6 jerseys. The band plays the fight song. There's a moment of silence, long and heavy. Everyone feels it, especially on windy nights. Because sometimes the gym doors rattle on their own. Sometimes people swear they hear running on the hardwood floor, even when it's empty. The court hasn't changed. The championship banner still hangs. The photos are still framed. The last team photo, taken minutes before the boys vanished, remains untouched. 6 young men, proud, grinning, holding a trophy in triumph. They were supposed to be legends. Instead, they became a question mark written into the history of the town. But stories didn't stop there. One night, nearly a year after the van's discovery, a jogger was running the school track around 11 p.m. A storm was coming in, wind whistling through the trees. The track lights flickered. He paused to rest, sipping water and looking toward the school building. That's when he saw it. Movement. On the court. Inside the gym. Through the tall glass windows, 6 figures darted across the floor. Passing, dribbling, silent. No squeaks, no shouts. Just playing. The jogger froze. He said he knew instantly who they were. He didn't recognize the faces, not from that distance, but it was them. The posture, the height, the way they moved, like they'd practiced that same play 1,000 times. Then, one of them stopped. He turned toward the window, toward the jogger. And he smiled. Not sinister, not friendly, just familiar, like he recognized the jogger. Then the lights went out. The jogger ran, leaving behind his water bottle and phone. Later, when the school custodian checked the building, he found the gym locked, alarm intact, no one inside. But 6 fresh footprints were left on the polished wood, dusty, out of place, and one basketball sat perfectly centered at the half-court line. That footage was never released. The school says it doesn't exist. But in Worthville, they don't need proof. They already know what they saw, and what they continue to see. The town no longer questions whether the boys are gone. They only wonder what came back.